Hello, my friend. Welcome to episode 2. I am Gideon, and this is Food for Thought. Today's episode is self-trust. Learning how to trust yourself. Probably one of the most difficult elements. It's easy, as we all know, to trust others, to put our faith in others. But when it comes to trusting yourself, how does that look, and how does it really feel? And how do you build that level of trust with self? Well, as always, I think it's best to sort of speak from experience. I can go down numerous amount of stories about self-trust, and so can everybody else. Everyone has got a story, and that's a fact. And the fact of the matter is, if you've come this far, then you do have a level of trust for yourself. Whether you've made it through your circumstances undesirably or desirably, the fact of the matter is you have survived. And once you've survived something, there's enough evidence in there for you to know that you can go on regardless. In fact, there's even more evidence to let you know that you cannot be defined by your circumstances. So building self-trust, how does that look? I look upon myself, I look back in my younger days, even just as simple as trying to ask a girl out on a date. Building the possible outcome often hindered my ability to approach, and then ultimately never really experiencing what that moment could have been like. And as a result, you go on in life second guessing yourself because of that one incident, and as you go on, you start to develop less and less of trust within yourself, all because you played a possible outcome of a scenario that you never experienced. As life went on, I learned to take action. I learned to have a go. I learned to take risks. I learned to pick myself up from the repercussions of my decision makings. And as a result, I realized the more I went in, the more I learned about me. It was never about how best prepared I was, even though that's, highly recommended. It was always about me recognizing who am I becoming in this moment of adversity, in this moment of confusion, in this moment of lost land, of opportunities, etc. Who am I becoming? Recognizing self and intently making choices and decisions for what the outcome could possibly be, rather than hindering myself from making the decision. 2, recoiling back to the old me because I'm in the land of the unfamiliar. These are the 2 big factors that will affect your ability to build trust with yourself. And so what I found is that the more I experience what's outside of my comfort zone, the more I experience rebuilding or building myself up from the breakdowns, the more I got to learn about myself and ultimately build a level of self-trust. Now, I know there's probably somebody out there just like me, you're sitting there and you've got decisions to make, whether it's to walk away from the job, the relationship, whether it's to start the job or the relationship, make an investment, whatever it is. And the fact that you've played the worst case scenario possible outcome, you've procrastinated. Or worse, you have walked away from making the decision. My friend, let me tell you this. I will always remind you that circumstances are not there to define you. Circumstances are there for you to go through self-exploration, self-discovery. Circumstances have no meaning until they go against or contradict some level of belief that you have about yourself within yourself. Circumstances are nothing until you make them mean something. And if you become hypothetical, that is, if you start to play out scenarios that you haven't lived, the chances are you're going to favor the worst case scenario or the worst possible outcome. And that will highly influence you into not making a decision or ultimately walking away. So I say this to you, my friend, to build a level of trust or deeper level of trust for self, give yourself permission. Give yourself permission and disregard the possible outcome, because the outcome, you will never know what it is. There is a quote that goes, map is not territory. And what that simply means is that you could look at a map, but the map is not going to tell you about the peaks and the valleys. It's not going to tell you about the storms and the weather and the animals. It's not going to tell you anything other than the left and the right turns you've got to make. Likewise, when making a decision in life, or when it's time to trust yourself and go into the unknown, you're only going to be hypothetical or predict the outcome, but you will never truly know what experiences you're going to go through until you give yourself permission to take that first step, then the second step, then the third step. Then finally, and ultimately, you're in it. You're amongst it. You're amongst the confusion. You're amongst the being broke. You're amongst the losing friends, losing sleep, whatever it is. You're amongst it. You're outside of your comfort zone. And that, my friend, is where the self-discovery, self-exploration takes place. You stay in there long enough, my friend, and soon enough the circumstances will pass. The storm will be weathered, and then you'll find yourself with yourself again. And in that moment, you will reflect upon what it is that you've gone through, all the pieces that you need to pick up and build upon, etc., etc. But one thing that will stand out is this: you will look at yourself differently. You will understand yourself differently. You will develop a level of trust that you didn't even know you had within yourself. But I must warn you, this may become addictive. What a great addiction to have. So, my friend, I say to you with something to think about, some food for thought. If you're struggling with self-trust, and that could look like in many ways, self-doubt, self-acceptance, self-validation, self-worth, all of these things accumulatively lead to the road or the journey of self-trust. If you are struggling with this, I say to you, take the leap into the unknown. Make the decision that you're questioning. Allow yourself to break so that you can go through the journey of putting yourself back together. And on that journey, you will discover what is necessary for you to come back, to build. And along that journey of discovering what's necessary, you will start to put value on certain elements such as time and everything else. And whilst you're putting yourself back together and finding what is of value, before you know it, you ask yourself, what's worthy? And as you put yourself together and discovering what's worthy and what's valuable, you will ultimately discover, wait a minute, I am building or rebuilding myself here. And by the time you get to the end, you will come to understand yourself differently. Ultimately, a new level of trust will be born. And then when you look back in hindsight of whatever it is that you've gone through, you will discover that no moment or experience was there to define you. It was there for you to explore yourself. And what's more is you will discover you are more than what you have become. You are more than what happens to you.